There can be no right to health without the right to food. There can definitely be no right to life without the right to food.
The existence of malnutrition in South Africa is a result of multiple factors, one of which can be proper education and the dissemination of knowledge around nutrition and healthy habits.
One of the themes that has come through quite strongly is the need for greater voice and greater agency for the various different views and perspectives that are out there. And particularly also the perspectives and views and the situation of women.
Which is creating platforms where locally we share as growers knowledge or seeds or resources.
On the political side of things is that food security doesn't really address the issues of where households get food and how everyone actually get fed. And the nutrition.
Legislation and policies have great aspirations for the fulfillment of the right to food in South Africa. However, the reality shows that almost up to 21.3% of households in South Africa still have inadequate access or severely inadequate access to food.
Not saying and demanding that it is a basic right, and before we can have health and water and all of those things, what is it if we don't have food, if we are starving and we are dying of hunger as poor communities?
One of the largest impacts of food and nutritional insecurity is the effect of malnutrition on children. Stunting prevents physical and cognitive growth of children that has a lifelong impact on their full human development and affects 27% of children in South Africa.
The right to food isn't at par with other socioeconomic rights, and there are quite a number of reasons, but I think that what piques my interest the most has been civil society's apathy towards the right to food within the South African jurisdiction. Why is there that apathy with regards to pushing for the right to food when you compare with other rights, such as the right to health, such as the right to water, the right to sanitation? You hear things around the right to food, and everybody immediately thinks that if you guarantee other rights, then probably the right to food will be sorted. I usually say that in the right to food movement is the other way around. This is food first. Without a guarantee of the right to food first, several other rights can't be guaranteed.
I want to be bold and say that many NGOs out there that is talking on behalf of working class communities' needs are kind of out of touch. So we also understand the funding, not saying and demanding that it is a basic right, and before we can have health and water and all of those things, what is it if we don't have food, if we are starving and we are dying of hunger as poor communities?
I'm anxious to ask people to help themselves when the system has been designed to exclude so many. So why are those that are excluded, that are suffering food poverty, now using their own agency, using their own their desire to solve this problem, why are they expected to be then solving that problem? And who does that let off the hook?
I think it's a peculiarly African problem. And it's not a problem that started with COVID. This criminalization and overregulation of the informal sector. And I think that an acknowledgement of that would probably help to move the discussion forward. Just like every other thing, COVID has exacerbated the issue around how we overregulate the informal sector, and just generally the relationship of the state with the informal sector, the lack of recognition of how much the informal sector as a sector generally contributes to the economy.
If people were to just write over hunger, we would have had riots throughout our history, and we would have had riots all the time. So there's something more that needs to happen. And how do we create the spaces in which there is a sense of solidarity? And I think for me, one of the things that COVID has shown is that multiple groups are acting on the food system issues. And I think the real challenge going forward is to maintain that energy.
But through the CAN groups, we managed to the connectedness and the synergies amongst people, that actually the self-organizing and people coming together and organizing food for people, fresh vegetables for people from the farms, and seedlings and seeds for us to actually revive our gardens. And that actually created connectedness within the community itself.
COVID-19 has exposed the disjuncture between policy and implementation because of the absence of a framework legislation and the impact of the lack of coordination of policies across departments, national departments. There's been that gap on who or what departments are responsible for ensuring the right to food of everybody, and not just of everybody, specifically of vulnerable groups in the light of COVID-19.
For the future, as much as we know that we are in a crisis with climate, this is going to actually help for the next generation, creating this biodiversity.